All right, so moving on to our first film on the road to the top 10 of 2020. Now, not all these films are going to probably make it in the top 20, but they're films that are on my watch list to really watch before I feel comfortable making a top 10 of 2020 list. I mean, obviously, I can't watch everything, but at least the films that are on streaming services that I feel like could be in there, I'm gonna check out. Like, come on, like there's no excuse for me not to watch them. So the first one on my list was a film called His House. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original film, and it's about a refugee couple from war-torn South Sudan. They flew on they they got out of South Sudan. I don't know why I'm being lost for the word. They escaped from South Sudan and they go to England and they struggle to adjust to their new life, and they also have some some demons or things that they need to work out, and maybe the house that they're living in may or may not be haunted. It's kind of up for you to find out, and that's kind of where we are in this film. That's the synopsis of the film. It's directed by Remy Weeks. It stars the two main actors that I'm probably going to completely butcher their names, Sope Dirisu and Wunmi Mosaku. I probably completely ruined the pronunciation of those names because I can't read. But both of them are really good. We'll get into that a little bit more. But I'm just gonna say this now. This is a solid horror film. It's a pretty solid horror film, and we'll get into that a little bit more in depth. But I'll kind of put this type of horror film under a situational horror genre with a little bit of a sprinkle of domestic horror. Now, if you unfamiliar with those terms, I mean they're kind of just my terms that I've kind of coined for certain horror films. Situational horror would be a film kind of like Gerald's Game. If you haven't seen Gerald's Game, it's also on Netflix. Highly recommend. But it's about a woman who's like who's tied to a bed, and her husband has a heart attack and dies because they're doing some little dirty in the bedroom, and then the husband dies, and she's just kind of stuck there, tied. So it's characters in the film are in these unavoidable, impossible situations that are impossible to get out of, pretty much, or really hard to escape and get out of. That's kind of what situational horror is, and there's actually a decent amount more comparisons from this film to Gerald's Game that I'll get into. And domestic horror is, think about Hereditary or The Babadook, or classically The Shining is probably the most famous domestic horror film. Dealing with those like intimate familial topics that are kind of dark and a bit disturbing at times. Now, His House, this film is probably not as good as any of those films that I've previously mentioned, but is still really good, and let's get into that. Now, like I said, it's pretty comparable to Gerald's Game. Not just it shares the same subgenre of horror film, but some of the vision scenes, like when characters are envisioning things, I feel like it's filmed very similarly, at least lighting wise. It has this like fiery tint to it and uses a lot of oranges and reds in the lighting, and it's really cool. It makes it a lot more, I want to say, hellish and scary and suspenseful when they do it. And those vision scenes in both films are really good and provide a lot of the really good scares in the film. And also, it also has this similar like graphic, practical effects, ending to it. Like during the ending climax of both films, it's like really gross practical horror. I'm like, oh, dude, that's so disgusting. But like it works, and they're both amazing. Both ending climaxes are great. It's hilariously disturbing. It's like, oh my god, Jesus Christ. Yeah. So let's go into what the film does well, other than being compared to a really good horror film like Gerald's Game. This is a horror film, so we got to talk about the scares. really good, really solid. I think there's one false jump scare in the beginning of the film. Again, false jump scares trigger me because it's just mini rant on false jump scares. Like, horror directors, don't put false jump scares in your film. They're pointless. Like, they're not funny. They hurt your film because they release all suspense and all tension for your audience, and your audience just like has this like gasp of air, like, oh, okay, nothing, it's just, oh, it's a bird, it's like, no, like, it's stupid. What you want to do is continuously build to something, and when you introduce a false jump scare, you're building, like, it just completely, it reverts you back to the beginning, and then you have to build up the suspense and the tension again. I don't understand false jump scares. I don't know why they're in films. I mean, again, there's only one in this film, and every other scare in this film is very good. I mean, there's a couple of actual jump scares. Jump scares are fine, as long as they're not false jump scares. When you're, there's something in your closet, and you walk up, and then you open your closet, and then it's a fucking cat. Like, no. Like, that shit needs to stop. It's stupid. I don't know why it's in. And there's one in this film. It's the very beginning, and it's just stupid and annoying, and it kind of triggered me. But other than that, the scares in this film are really good. There's some disturbing imagery. The jump scares that are in are very cleverly done and effective, and they continuously build more and more tension. There's really cool moments of like, oh, is there something in the background? Oh, there's someone behind this character. And they use the house that they're in very well. So yeah, not quite anything that's like burned or seared into my memory. Like, I didn't have trouble sleeping after this film like I did with like a film like Hereditary, or maybe like The Shining or The Exorcist or something like that. It's like, I mean, that's the bar. It's a pretty fucking high bar, and that's the bar that I set for horror films. This film doesn't really quite get there, but it doesn't have to be considered a quality horror film. Now, again, so yeah, the scares are really good. Sorry, I think the notes that I wrote for this film are actually kind of horrible, and they're really weirdly organized. I don't know. This is kind of an absolute debacle of an episode, and I apologize. But anyway, the two lead actors in this film, I'm not going to try to pronounce their names again because I'm just going to completely butcher them because, like I said, I can't read, and I'm stupid. But both of them are really good in the film. I love when horror films have good characters that are well acted and well written, and you care about them, because that enhances the scares so much more, and enhances the suspense. The reason why Hereditary works so well is because you care about the family, and like, you see yourself kind of in them. That's why The Shining works so well, because you care about the characters because they're developed a little bit. There's like, you find out some things in the past, and this film is no different. Like, you find out, like, these characters a little, at least mainly, them, and it develops them in a great way, and that's what makes the film a lot more scary than it usually is. And that's why slasher films aren't really that scary to me, is because I don't really give a shit about any of the characters, because I don't know any of them. But yeah, it makes you care. The practical effects that I talked about a little bit with the Gerald's Game comparison, really good. I don't know how. I mean, there's obviously some visual effects in here. It obviously has to happen, but a lot of it's practical, and a lot of it's really well done and really creepy and scarily, and it's visually very impressive. I found myself quite a few times watching this film being like, oh man, that's a really awesome shot. Oh, or like, oh, that's a really awesome visual. Very, very cool. I like that a lot, especially towards the end. The end is really cool. The film also has a twist that works, and I wasn't really expecting, or I didn't really see it. Maybe, maybe I am stupid, and you're smarter than me, and you were able to, you call it. But I didn't see it coming, and it's like a holy shit, this just got really dark type of twist. And it also, what the twist does is recontextualizes what you past things that you just saw. So like some certain things and certain character actions or character dialogue that didn't really make sense why they were happening before the twist now make a whole lot of sense and make so much and enhances the film a lot more after knowing the twist. So that's a sign of a really good twist, is when it recontextualizes things that happened in the past and it makes sense now after knowing, after the reveal. So kudos. It's hard to do a good twist in a film, and this film definitely achieves that a lot. Also, the ending, like I said, endings are. I don't think I've said this before. I probably have said it before in previous episodes. I've ranted about things like Game of Thrones and how an ending is so important to what you're making. It can kill, or it can kill your whole story, or it can enhance the whole thing. It's kind of the difference of you being kind of shitty or being one of the greatest of all time. Like, again, I'm going to pull the Game of Thrones example. Seasons 1 through 4, people are saying this is like one of the greatest shows, if not the greatest show of all time. It has amazing characters. It has amazing effects, an amazing world, great writing, it's just overall amazing. And then seasons 5 through 7 happen, and those kind of get taken down a notch, but I still kind of enjoyed them. And then season 8 comes out and it's shit, and it has a horrible ending to the series, and it's the reason why I don't really see myself ever watching Game of Thrones again and rewatching it. I rewatch Breaking Bad every couple years because I know it ends perfectly and it has an amazing ending, and it's amazing throughout. So endings are very important. I don't know why I'm going into this on a His House review, but this film has a really good ending, and then the theme of the film and the reason of the film comes to fruition and is kind of revealed to you, in that you need to recognize and acknowledge and confront your demons of your past in order to move on and have a good future. Or because ignoring them and not treating them like you did them, or if they even exist, doesn't work. And it's a little bit dramatic of a way to go about this theme, but it's effective. I mean, this is not a original theme to happen in horror films, but it works heavily here. I mean, and also the film also puts forward a lot of awareness for refugees of war-torn countries and how they're kind of perceived and how they're treated and how hard it is to adjust to a new society, and it's like a foreign world to them. And I don't know, it's definitely an eye-opening film as well, which I thought was very beneficial. Now, some random critiques of the film. I mean, it doesn't do a lot wrong other than that one jump scare scene, which is a random critique for me. But I don't really think there's much of a musical score in the film, and I feel like that's a really missed opportunity. I mean, I think there's some music here, but it's not very, I don't know, it's not very present. I should say it's very just kind of background noisy, I feel like, because if it wasn't, I would have heard it a little bit more, because it's something that I pay attention to, and it's something that I catch. I mean, I feel like Ari Aster, the director of Hereditary and Midsommar, utilizes his musical scores incredibly well. I mean, The Shining, for example, has an iconic musical score, and just the intro alone is creepy because of it. I mean, the intro, if you think about it, it's just a helicopter shot of some beautiful scenery, but then you add that musical score over it, the dun 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 dun, it just creates this weird atmosphere of dread, and that is what I think horror films benefit the most from having music and scores in them. So it being sort of absent or not really very recognizable in this film is kind of a missed opportunity for me. It's something that I like as a music fan, especially movie scores. I love listening to them. So it's something that I picked up on. Also, I feel like other characters other than treated our two main characters a little too shittily. I don't know. I guess some of it's understandable from I guess a political atmosphere standpoint from the world that we live in now. I guess especially probably me living in America and, understanding the political climate behind refugees. And I know England has, dealt with this heavily. That's why probably this movie was made. But I just don't see myself ever treating someone poorly like that. So it's kind of hard for me to, I guess acknowledge someone else doing that. But, again, it's not a huge criticism. I'm just I don't know. It's just there are examples of characters, not really characters, but people treating our main characters actually like human beings. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's not everyone's a shitty person, but primarily all of them are, So I thought that was, I don't know. It's not annoying. It was just kind of oh, wow, people can be horrible. And they can be. So maybe this is not a criticism. Maybe it's incredibly accurate, and that's how people treat, refugees from other countries. But it's not how I would do it, I don't want to get political on this show, but I don't know. It's just if we have to worry about a person that's not educated and barely speaks your native language taking your job, I feel like we have a lot more to worry about than them taking our jobs at that point. But anyway, stop getting political, Michael. Relax, move on. Overall thoughts on the film. It's solid. It's a solid horror film. It's really good. Has great scares, great characters to really connect with, really awesome moments, disturbing moments. Remy Weeks, the director, is clearly very talented. There's many moments where I was visually impressed and technically impressed. There's certain scenes I was oh wow, I didn't expect that. Holy crap. But if you're not a horror fan, if you're not a huge fan of horror films, this is skippable. It's a skippable film if you're not a horror fan. But if you are a horror fan, this is not a skippable film. So with that, doesn't have the movie magic though. Does it have the Mikey's movie magic, though? Yeah, it does. Of course it does. I feel like every film that I talk about has the movie magic, which kind of cheapens the rating for me, or my stamp of approval. But, it's a staple of this show, and I'm going to keep doing it. So, fuck off. But, will this be in the running for the top 10 of 2020? It's definitely in there. Definitely in the running, for sure. Will it get in there? I don't know. We'll see. I have to look at my list again. We'll get. I'm not going to spoil anything for you. Get excited for that list. I'm excited to create it. But anyway, again, solid horror film, good message, has a purpose to the film, which is very important, and just a solid film. Hello there. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you're unfamiliar with this channel, this is Nerd Out Sanctuary. I'm your host, Michael. What do I talk about, you say? Well, I talk about anything nerdy. So that's movies, video games, TV shows, comic books every once in a while. Books, maybe not. I don't know. Anything that I feel like talking about. I'm a huge nerd. I hope you're a huge nerd, and I hope we can enjoy our nerdiness together here. This is a full audio podcast available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, the major podcast platforms. So consider going over to those and checking out the full version of the episode. And other past episodes, please leave me a review and subscribe on those platforms. If you don't want to do that, clipped, shorter versions of those full episodes will be posted here on YouTube. So consider subscribing and liking the videos for more to support me and future content that I will be producing in the future on nerdy stuff. So yeah, thank you, and see you on the next one.